Number 5. Law of EF Hutton. Applying the 21 Laws of Leadership to HBO's Rome. Introduction. In this video, we'll be applying the Law of EF Hutton to Cicero from HBO's TV season Rome. Cicero is a nobleman and a senator. He is considered the unofficial leader of the moderates. Law 5 says that when the real leader speaks, people listen. The two scenes are pulled from episode 1 and episode 2 of season 1. We see that Cicero has tremendous influence in the Senate. There are a number of EF Hutton leaders in these scenes. The primary ones are Pompey, Cato, and Cicero. Number 5, the Law of EF Hutton. EF Hutton was a stockbroker firm that put out a series of viral commercials in the 1970s and 80s. The idea was that everyone wanted to hear what EF Hutton brokers were recommending because they are such a prestigious firm. We will start with one of the EF Hutton commercials. Next, we will watch a longer clip of John Maxwell describing the Law of EF Hutton. Then we shall watch a couple of scenes of Cicero in the Senate, and finally finish off with another John Maxwell clip.
You'll never regret the purchase of a good stock. You don't say. Yeah, my broker says it's a real good buy. What does your broker say?
Well, my broker's EF Hutton, and Hutton says... When EF Hutton talks, people listen.
Law number 5, the Law of EF Hutton. And the Law of EF Hutton says, when the real leader speaks, everybody listens. Isn't that the truth? When the real leader speaks, the people around you are going to listen. Now let me give you an example of that I've already taught a little bit earlier when I was talking to you about Claude. Remember the law of influence? The law of influence and the law of EF Hutton are cousins, okay? They're close. It's not the same law, but they connect or they relate. And when I told you about Claude and Hillham and the fact that he would make the motion and Benny would second it, Claude was the EF Hutton of the church, okay? Now, if you'll remember the commercial, this was on a few years ago, of the old EF Hutton commercial, and when EF Hutton speaks, and they might be busy, everybody would stop and everybody would listen to whatever they were going to say. What I want you to understand is that you need to go back to your church, you need to go back to your business, and you need to begin to find the EF Huttons in your organization. Now, let me kind of help you find them. In other words, you need to find the people that really do, when they speak, influence and affect people. Now, some of these EF Huttons will be positive EF Huttons. And some of these EF Huttons will be negative EF Huttons. Some of them are going to bless you, some of them are going to curse you. Are you with me? But let me talk to you about how do you find those influencers? How do you find those EF Huttons in your organizations? How do you know where they are? For example, I had one time in a leadership conference, I had somebody raise their hand, they asked me this question. They said, John, how do I know the influencers? Well, if you're not sure who they are, you could ask some questions like, go to people in your organizations and ask questions like, if you really wanted to get something started in this organization, who would you go see? That'll tell you a lot. Or if you wanted to get something stopped in this organization, who would you go see? That'll tell you a lot. In other words, you've got to be able to find the influencers, and one of the quickest ways to find the influencers, if I came to your business or if I came to your organization, I could very quickly find or discover the people that are the influencers. And let me show you what I mean. Let's say right down here on this front row, let's say this is my church board right here, okay? Let's say this is my church board, and let's say that Bill here is making a presentation. He wants to pave the parking lot, okay? He wants to spend $10,000 to pave the parking lot. Okay, so Bill's making the presentation, but let's say that Deborah is the EF Hutton of the church, okay? She's the influencer. She's the Claudia. Okay, she's the EF Hutton. So now, while Bill is making the presentation, we're all sitting around the table, we're listening to Bill make the presentation. While we're listening to Bill make the presentation, let me tell you what every one of us in the room are doing. While we're listening to Bill, we're watching Deborah. Now let me share this with you because this is keen insight. Whenever you want to find out who the EF Hutton is in any group, anytime you want to find out who the influencer is in any group, all you have to do is watch the people in that group and look at who they are looking at, especially when a key decision is going to be made. Because I promise you, if a key decision is about to be made, while Bill is making the presentation, the rest of us are sitting around, and while Bill is making the presentation, what are the rest of us doing? We're watching Deborah. The reason we're watching Deborah is because she's the EF Hutton of the group. She's the influencer. She's the true leader. Now, we're watching her because we're wanting her to give us a signal of whether we're for this or against this. Huh? Doesn't this make sense? So as Bill's talking about the parking lot and how we need the parking lot and how good it will look when the paved parking lot is done and how he's tired of walking in chuck holes and dirt and all that stuff. While he's doing that, we're watching Deborah. And if Deborah starts nodding, what do the rest of us start doing? We start nodding. Now, Bill watches me nod across the table and he says, oh, good. I think they're for it. Then Bill says, I think I'm doing a good job with this presentation. No, Bill, it's not whether you do a good job or a bad job with the presentation. It's whether Deborah, EF Hutton, likes it. You see, she's the one that's going to give us the signal. Just as if Bill's making the presentation and Deborah's sitting there and she is shaking her head and she's thinking that $10,000 could be sent for missions and all kind of wonderful things and we're not going to pave the parking lot. And so when Deborah starts shaking her head, what do the rest of us do? We start shaking our head, and Bill said, boy, I must be doing a terrible presentation. No, Bill, you may be doing a good presentation. That isn't the issue. The issue is that Deborah, the EF Hutton, doesn't like the idea. In fact, if Bill was really smart, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. If Bill was really smart, he'd take Deborah out to lunch. In other words, what Bill would do is he would take the real influencer, he would take the EF Hutton out to lunch and get her opinion. In fact, if Bill was really smart, he would stand up and he'd say, you know, this presentation I'm going to make, I think it's really sound, but before I wanted to make the board, I wanted to make sure it was sound. And so Deborah and I had lunch together the other day, and she likes it too. Well, if that's the case, here's the good news. We don't even need to hear the presentation. Hey, we can go home early tonight and watch Monday Night Football, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. And see, what happens is, so many times we do not understand what true influence is like, and we don't truly understand how to find the influencers. The eyes, of course, are the window of the soul, but you always follow the eyes. I mean, when we're done here this evening, and maybe you're going to go to dinner, I can promise you in a group of people, somebody's going to help make the decision where you go to dinner. And I want to say this, if I was in the group, you could just watch the people. You see, people will unconsciously look at the real decision maker. They always do. They'll look kind of waiting for the decision to be made.
So now we go to Cicero Scene 1. In this scene, we get the first glimpse of Cicero in the Senate. Pompey Magnus is in the middle of making a speech, but the left and right-leaning senators are making a ruckus. Cicero is able to silence the entire crowd and then take the floor for speaking himself. Pompey is able to make a joke and bring the focus back to himself, but we begin to see the influence that Cicero has.
Very good, Cato. Full of vim and verve as usual. Caesar has been generous to the people because he loves the people as I do. It is the people that rule, not you fine noblemen.
It is Pompey's soldiers that rule, not we fine noblemen.
I'm going to save us all hours of useless clamor and use my consular veto on your motion. I do not. Silence!
Are we children? Let the consul speak.
Thank you, Cicero. I do not.
However, if I might say a few words before you continue. When confronted by a hungry wolf, it is unwise to goad the beast, as Cato would have us do. But it is equally unwise to imagine the snarling animal a friend and offer your hand, as Pompey does.
Perhaps you would have us climb a tree. Caesar is my brother by sacred oath. I know his heart. He is my friend and a faithful son of the Republic. And until anyone proves that he is not, I will never betray him.
Cicero Scene 2. In the second scene, the Senate is voting on a motion making Julius Caesar an enemy of Rome. Cicero has a swing vote. The motion needs him and the moderates that follow him to pass the motion. Cicero is bullied into making this decision, but that doesn't lessen his leadership/influence. We will also see that Cicero has influence over Mark Antony. Cicero is definitely one of the EF Huttons in the Senate.
A motion is proposed. Those in favor make it known.
Antony! Veto the motion! Stand up! Veto the motion! I demand the floor! I demand the floor!
Give him the floor!
I veto the motion! Tribune vetoes the motion!
John Maxwell. In the following clip, John talks about the importance of winning the EF Huttons on your side. Pompey did this before the critical vote. He met one-on-one with Cicero to make sure that he got his support. I don't agree with the means he used. Pompey threatened Cicero that he would sail off to Spain and leave the noblemen to their own devices. Personally, I believe that threats and bullying only work in the short term and that they destroy trust over longer periods of time.
And what you need to do is you need to understand who the influencers are. You need to know who the EF Huttons are. And this is very key because what I have found in leading now for 30 years, I have found that a leader's responsibility is to pick out who the EF Huttons are. And you know what? Bridget may be one of the influencers and may be one of the EF Huttons. What's your name, sir? Jay? Yes. Jay may be one of the influencers. And see, as a leader, I say, okay, man, I need Jay in this project. I need Bridget in this project. What's your name, sir? Tommy, I might say, okay, I got to have Tommy in this project. Okay, what I do is, here's what I want you to know. There may be a couple hundred people in the studio, but what you have to know is you have to go to the influencers. And if it's Jay, and if it's Tommy, and if it's Bridget, if these are the people that are the influencers, I need to bring them in because they're the EF Huttons. And when they speak, they're going to carry the ball for me. In fact, here's the way I have always tried to do it as a leader. I've never had a meeting with everybody until I've had meetings with the key people. And what I would do is I'd walk into a room like this and I would say, listen, gang, I'm very excited about a vision. I'm very excited about something I want to share with you. In fact, for the last couple of days, Jay and Tommy and Bridget and I have been talking together. And what we've decided is this is the best way for the organization. In fact, let me tell you something. Tommy gave me a thought on this that's just tremendous, and I'll throw in a Tommy thought. And you know what? When we talked about this, Bridget said we ought to do this. And Jay, what you said the other day about this, you know what I'm doing? I'm tying them all in. So they're not just following me. They're following EF Hutton Jay. And they're following EF Hutton Bridget. And they're following EF Hutton Tommy. Because the real leaders have the influence, and when the real leader speaks, people listen.
Conclusion. You want to know who the EF Huttons in your life are. Making friends with them will make your leadership journey so much easier. And you want to work at becoming an E.F. Hutton leader yourself. This means going through the 5 levels of leadership with people. In particular, it starts with making friends with people on a relational level. You can't truly lead people you don't like and respect. This was a lesson that took me a while to learn. On the other hand, some people are all relational. They need to learn to focus on adding some productivity and hard truths to their relationships, moving them up to level 3, production. Thanks for watching.